Hello folks, so in this one we're looking at small cars, the best small cars for between £5,000 and £10,000, and we're going to look at Super Mini, middle of the road, a little TARDIS, and then a performance car, and then finally I'm going to show you what I consider to be the best all-round small car available in the UK right now for that sort of budget. All these cars are ULEZ compliant. They're all petrol actually. I'll come on to the reasons for that in just a second. And they've all got under 80,000 miles. If you like any part of this video, please give it a thumbs up. Keep watching. Okay, so the reason these cars are all going to be petrol, even though one in here might be a petrol hybrid, mild hybrid, the reason they're all going to be petrol is because small cars tend to do short distances. And by that, I mean lots of in-town driving. Diesels, in my experience and in my opinion, need to be run. They need long journeys. They need fairly regular, decent sort of motorway journeys. So if you fall into that category and you're going to do long journeys in a small car, by all means consider one of the diesels. But if you're just doing short round town trips in it, you're very likely to get, DPF issues and one or two other little things. So for this one, I'm sticking to petrols, and that's the reason. So we're going to start things up here with this VW Up. Now, the VW Up is a car that's actually available in 3 different brands. So the Say It Me, the VW Up and the Skoda Citigo are essentially all the same car, just with different trim and a different badge, essentially. They're all very, very similar indeed. So pretty much all 1 litre petrol engines, but there are different power levels available. In this one, I'm looking at this VW Up, specifically the 1 litre TSI, and this is an 89 brake horsepower, because I think the 89 brake horsepower is the best sort of balance between sort of frugality, if you like, and a little bit of fun. There is a 60 brake horsepower, which is, dirt cheap to run and everything else, but it's also sort of 14 seconds to 60. But if you're just pootling around town, maybe that's the one to go for you. For me, if I were looking at one of these, I'd probably go for this one. 155 quid a year on the road tax, insurance group 10 and 55 mpg. And then you're looking at 9.6 seconds to 60. I mean, 9.6 is not a quick car, but in a very small car, it does feel rapid. This particular one we're looking at here has got 42,500 miles on it. It's just over 8 grand, a 2018 model. There is one of these to suit most budgets. You can sort of pump it up to closer to the 10. You can get them for closer to the 5. And, there is something there to suit most budgets. And it's a good solid car to start things off with. On this sort of theme of cars that are shared across different platforms and different brands, don't overlook the Citroen C1, Peugeot 108 and Toyota Aygo, which again are essentially all the same car. I personally, if I was going to get one, I think I'd go for the VW Up or the Skoda Citigo or the Say It Me. That's not to say there's anything wrong with the 108 or the C1 or the Aygo, because they're all great cars as well. On all these, I wouldn't recommend the automatic gearboxes. I would say if you're going to get one of these, get a manual, because the automatics are like the automated manual, and my experience with those things is that they're a bit poo. But if you specifically want an auto, go and check one out, run it through its paces, and see what you think. Common issues on these cars really comes down to gearbox. Really put the gearbox through its paces. Make sure it's happy going into reverse. Make sure it's happy going through the gears. Make sure there's no sort of whiny noises coming from the gearbox or anything like that. And if it's got a sunroof, make sure there's no rattles coming from that. That can be an issue at times. I've done a deal with VCheck, who I think are one of the premier providers of online car history checks. As you can see here on this quick sample report, you can check the registered VIN number against the one that's actually on the vehicle. You can see the current MOT and road tax status. Has the car ever been stolen? Is there outstanding finance? Has it been an insurance write-off? If so, what kind? If it has been, can you see photos of the car before the damage was repaired? You might see this car now and it's in perfect condition, but does seeing these images of it at the time of the accident make you change your mind possibly? Has it been a taxi? Number of previous keepers and the dates for those, number plate changes, mileage records. This is great because you can see any discrepancies in the mileage in a really easy to follow way. So if it done 50,000 one year, 40 the next, you know there's a problem. You've also got the MOT history checks all built into this one single report, and it'll give you a basic car valuation. The bundles start from £1.60 a check, but I would all strongly recommend you go for the full check. Now I've done a deal with VCheck. They do pay me if you use my link, so please do that because it helps support the channel. And I have to tell you that this is a completely unbiased recommendation. You should never buy a used car without running these kind of checks, and this is a fantastic one. Please use the link in the video description and help support the channel. Okay, so next we've got the Toyota Yaris, and these are brilliant little cars. Not too many issues with them. Again, I would say really put the gearbox through its paces. Just the normal things, make sure the AC is blowing nice and cold. Listen out for any strange noises, but not a massive amount goes wrong with these things. This is the 1.3 dual VVTi Sport. Let's have a look at the performance this one gives you. So it's 11.7 seconds to 62, 98 brake horsepower, 30 quid a year on road tax, and then it combines out at 55.4 mpg. I said, great little cars. They've perhaps got an image as a car of an older gentleman, shall we say, but you know, I'd happily take one of those any day of the week over a Vauxhall Corsa, which is a far more popular car in this country. Definitely you need to have the Yaris on your radar if you are considering a small car. If it's performance you're after, what about this little bad boy? It's the Abarth 595. So Fiat 500 on steroids. A couple of little issues that you see on most cars, but specific to this, one of the main things seems to be the washer jets failing. So make sure you check the washer jets. Something else you need to think about with these kind of cars is how hard they've been driven. Someone's bought a performance car here. They've bought the Abarth 595 as opposed to the Fiat 500. And they may have done that because they want to rag it round back roads, or they may have just done that because they want a sportier looking, more sort of premium car. Look for signs of hard driving. You can look at things like uneven tyre wear at the front of the car. Has it been modified? Because if it's been modified, that might be a more enthusiastic driver. It's just sometimes an indicator, you know. But tons of fun, these things. Performance-wise, 0 to 62 in 7.9 seconds. 138 horsepower in a little car like that. 155 quid a year on the road tax, and 47 mpg combined. Insurance group 26, so it's right up there insurance wise. That's about half the way up the insurance groups, so it's not going to be cheap to insure for everyone, but they're very cool little things, aren't they? Right, now we go into our TARDIS of a car, and some of you have probably guessed what that is. It's the Honda Jazz. Not an exciting car at all, this one, but you can get a ton of gear in them, and really, although this is a small car video, this thing gives you more room and practicality than a lot of cars in the sort of next stage up, a lot of your sort of mid-size hatchbacks. So as you can see here, you've got boot space of 337 litres, and that's getting up there towards things like your Focus and your Golf, that size of car. And then with the seats down, 1,320 litres. I don't know if you know about these things, but they've got very clever rear seats. So there's all kinds of weird and wonderful things you can do with those to allow you to get all kinds of stuff into that car that you wouldn't think possible. So great little cars, a little bit boring. So we're looking at a couple of different engines in this one. This one's the 1.4i VTEC, and that gives you 130 quid a year road tax, insurance group 19, and 50 mpg. And then 0 to 60 is 11.5 seconds, it's 98 horsepower. If we then look at the other engine option, which is the 1.3, and this is the hybrid, the mild hybrid technology, that one's insurance group 16, 10 quid a year on your road tax, and 62.8 mpg, and 12.1 seconds to 60. So it's a lot cheaper in terms of running costs, and you're not losing a great deal in terms of the performance. They do hold their value very well, the Honda Jazz. So you will find some of these knocking around the market with Fit written on the back rather than Jazz. Now, in Japan, it's called the Honda Fit. In the US, it's called the Honda Fit. In the UK, it's called the Honda Jazz. If you see a Honda Fit here, it's going to be a Japanese import. No particular issues with that. However, it should flag on your car history check, by the way, that it's an import. You will find that it will either have an aftermarket stereo in, or if it's still got the original head unit, it's probably all going to be in Japanese, and you're going to need to get that changed. You might also find that the speedometer's in kilometers rather than the miles per hour. You really need to get that checked. I personally would say just get the Jazz, don't bother getting the Japanese import. There's no massive advantage to it, in fairness. You might find them a little bit cheaper, but just something to be aware of anyway. In terms of common issues on the Jazz, really just look for a jerky drive. If the car's in any way jerky, I would say just walk away from it. It can be a minor issue, can be quite a major issue, but just walk away from it if it's in any way jerky. And the other thing just to look for is water leaking into the boot compartment. So just have a good poke around in the boot, feel if it feels damp or anything like that, peel up the carpet and see if there's any signs of damp or any kind of paint bubbles or anything like that that might suggest it's been damp in the past and water's caused a bit of damage and you might have a bit of rust coming on. But there you go, that's the Jazz. Okay, so then we come on to my choice of small car. So if I were to buy a small car today, right now, with my own money, which one would I buy? And it would be the Audi A1. Okay, so I've driven quite a lot of these. I've often had them as loan cars when my Audis have been in for services. I've driven manuals and automatics. I have to say that compared to the other cars in this class, I feel the Audi A1 is the most premium feeling and the best screwed together. And they can also be a really good laugh to drive. So for me, it's sort of the best of all worlds is the A1. It's not the most practical. It hasn't got the biggest boot. You haven't got the most leg room in the back. But if you just want a small car for nipping around town and you don't need to carry, half the house with you, the A1's a great shout. The petrol engines come in 3 flavours basically. We'll start with this one, which is the 1 litre, which is the smallest one of them. 1 litre TFSI. Running costs on that one's insurance group 15, 0 road tax, and 67.3 mpg. And then performance 10.5 seconds to 60. You've got the 1.2 TFSI, 30 quid a year on the car tax, 55 mpg, and 0 to 60 in 11.9, so it's actually slower than the 1 litre. And then this one's my pick of the bunch. It's the 1.4 TFSI, and this one checks in at 130 quid a year on the road tax, 52.3 mpg, and performance-wise, 0 to 60 in 9 seconds. Again, 9 seconds in a very small car, which you're low to the ground in, feels quick. It really does feel quick. And great fun, really agile, nippy little cars. Great driving feel, great response. Really can't say enough about these things. Another thing to say here is this older generation of A1s, I think they're screwed together far better than the brand new A1s. And I'd take one of those over one of the new ones, in all honesty, because the older ones had a much more premium feel, when nowadays, I think in a lot of Audi and VW group cars, the build quality's gone down a little bit. Certainly on interior trim and things like that, you can see where corners have been cut a little bit compared to some of the older cars. The A1 really does feel like a special little car, in my opinion. And as I said, if I were to buy a small car today, it would probably be one of those, if I had the budget to get a nice one. Now, with all these cars, don't forget your usual checks. So I strongly advise doing a V-check. My link is in the video description. And for all the reasons we've said before, when you look on sites like Auto Trader and eBay, and they say they've passed these history checks, and you go onto a dealer site and they say it's HPI clear, it might well be HPI clear. HPI won't show up a number of things that you'll get from a more comprehensive check, like you see with V-check, Car Vertical, and those kind of places. So if you use that V-check link, it does help support the channel. And also with all these, do a really good test drive. The same as you would on any car. Get it through the gears. Make sure everything works as it should. Check the windows. Check the sunroof. That's an issue, particularly on the A1s, actually, if you've got a sunroof, is making sure the thing works properly. So there have been a few issues with those, and making sure the windows don't stick. And then always look at the service history and really interrogate that service history. If all the stamps look like they were done at the same time and all the writing in there's been done with the same hand, what appears to be using the same pen, it might be bent. So feel free to pick up the dealer that has supposedly stamped that book, give them a call and see if they have actually seen the car, if it did get a service at that mileage on that date. It takes you 2 minutes and it might save you buying yourself a headache. Hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Please do go and check out this video that's popping up now, because I think you're going to like that if you like this one. And if you did like this one, remember to give it a thumbs up. Remember also that probably only 10% of the people watching this are subscribed. So bite the bullet and subscribe. We keep pumping out car content here for you, and there's much, much more to come in future. Thanks very much again. See you soon.